Hello and welcome to A Gypsy's Kiss, the vlog. I'm Shelley Carney.
And I'm Toby Onis. Stick with us for just a few seconds, and we will give you 30 minutes worth of information that will get you absolutely no closer to the treasure.
And we're back. Please take a moment now and give us a thumbs up. YouTube likes it when you like our videos.
After we just told you we're going to give you 30 minutes worth of useless information, please like this video. Please like it anyway.
And share it with your social media contacts and let them know about all our great useful information. And then subscribe and click on the bell to receive notifications.
To get more useless information.
Yay.
Yeah, we better not push that too far because we might get people that just go like, okay, I'm giving him a dislike. Never mind. We'll be good. It's good information. You'll have fun with it. Okay, so we want to know who this man is, and we're going to help you figure out who this man is.
His mustache is bigger than his whole head.
Yeah, he didn't always have that big a mustache. That wasn't until later in life. He was, of course, a famous artist. He was born in 1855, died in 1919. He was primarily known for his Civil War paintings, and as a painter, he had his ups and downs. There were periods of years when he was in favor with the art community, and other periods when he wasn't. And by the time he passed away in 1919, he was kind of on the down and outs rather than being a popular painter. But you will recall him for this reason. I'm going to play a video and see if you can see who our friend is talking about.
Name that painter.
Name that painter.
I learned, one of the big lessons I had to learn was not to buy something just because I liked it. I had to learn to buy it but hoping somebody else would like it. And I remember one of the first lessons I had, it was a wonderful lesson. I had a good friend that brought a dealer to me from Amarillo. And the two of them talked me into buying a black and white Gilbert Gaul painting. Gilbert Gaul was a Civil War painter and a pretty good painter, but this was a black and white painting of a man standing on a bridge holding a smoking pistol, and there's a dead dog laying on the bridge, bleeding all over the bridge. And I told people, I used to lecture down in the business school and the art school, and I'd tell those students that I made millions of dollars with that painting because I kept it for about 5 years. I couldn't sell it to anybody. I finally traded it to the Houston Art Museum for two little French paintings that I sold for $1,500 a piece, and I gave $5,500 for the Gilbert Gaul. But I told them that I made a lot of money on that painting because I learned about friends, I learned about dealers, I learned about Gilbert Gaul, I learned about black and white paintings, I learned about smoky guns, I learned about dogs bleeding on a bridge, and I never made any of those mistakes again.
Now, let me focus you in on...
So, as our friend and treasure hider just explained, that's the infamous Gilbert Gaul. Gilbert Gaul painted the painting called Dead Dog that Forrest had purchased for, I think he said he purchased it for $5,000 or $1,500, something like that.
$5,000.
$5,000.
And then he sold those two French paintings for
$1,500 a piece. So since he first told the story, and it was slightly different in the Thrill of the Chase, he mentioned it, but it was a learning experience for him. So he was able to reconcile the fact that it wasn't a great investment for him. And I'd always had the impression that not making money at art usually is the result of a painting that was either so bad by an unknown artist that it wouldn't sell well, or it was a painting by an unknown artist that made you uncomfortable. And the more he described it, the whole dead dog thing bleeding on the bridge thing, I thought to myself, when I heard about it, I thought to myself, well, that has to be a tremendously uncomfortable painting, because who in their right mind would hang a painting on the wall with a dead dog in a pool of blood and a man holding a gun before them? I mean, it just wasn't a pretty, and of course it was black and white. And so there was a lot of reasons not to buy this painting, and that's probably why he had such difficulty buying it, and probably regretted, of course, him actually paying $5,000 to his, quote, friend and art dealer from Lubbock for this painting that he finally had to trade to a museum in order to get any kind of value.
Well, that's something we could have talked about in our letting things go, was at least he knew he had a story out of it, if
Right.
nothing else.
He had a story, right?
A story
So
to
that
tell.
was the benefit. So I had looked for the painting, and just to see what was it about this painting that was so interesting to Fenn, and what it learned, why it had the story that it did, because all of Gilbert Gaul's, and it's very easy to find Gilbert Gaul paintings, especially the ones that he did during his Civil War period. He was recognized as a fine artist right up to and including the Chicago World's Fair in 1893, and so I kind of wondered what was it about this painting that was so, impossible to like. And so I looked for it and couldn't find anything. It was really difficult. And I tried all the traditional, there's a number of sources online that enable you to do art searches, and couldn't find anything. And so I kind of gave up on it. Then about, I guess, a couple of weeks ago, we were reviewing the video, and somebody brought up the topic and said, did you ever find that painting? And my response was that no, I had done a little bit of research, but I hadn't found it. Well, just a few days later, after that video was published, I got a contact from Janet Landgard. Janet is the, they don't call them moderators, admin over at the Facebook page called Forrest Fenn Treasure Galore. And it was really neat because she sent me an email and said something like, do you want to know more about the Gilbert Gaul, the dead dog painting? I said, absolutely. And I gave her my phone number and I asked her to call me. And so we initiated the conversation, and she said something like, I have it. And it was very surreptitious. Is it? Like, I have it. What do you mean you have it? And I thought she meant I have the painting. She says, I have a photocopy of the painting. And so, of course, that intrigued me, because up until this time, I hadn't seen it. And then she told me a story. And here's the story that she told me, that back in late 2017, she and her group on Forrest Fenn Treasures Galore, decided they were going to go look for this. So they did a crowdsourcing kind of thing where everybody went to look. And they didn't find anything. In a very short period, they came up with the same thing. We didn't find anything. And one of her members, Terry Kasberg, the gentleman that you see there, volunteered to continue an even deeper search, went into a deeper search, and came back to Janet and said, can't find anything. It's just not there. And Janet suggested one other thing that she had found based on her research. And she asked Terry to contact Christie's and Sotheby's, which you should know by now for the number of times that we've talked about them, are the two big auction houses. And they both have offices in New York and on the West Coast. And so he did. And he scored a hit at Sotheby's. Sotheby's told him that they had the painting in one of their auctions, and that it had sold. And Terry asked them about it, and they said that the painting had sold at auction for $1,800. So, even worse, over the years, the painting's price has diminished in value. Terry asked, being very smart about the research that he was doing, Terry asked if he could have the information to contact the buyer to see if he could get a photograph of it. And Sotheby's, as is their norm, said, no, we can't share that with you. If the buyer decides to remain anonymous, we can't provide that information to you. And so Terry asked what else they have. And he said, well, I can give you a photocopy of the image as it was presented in the catalog. and Terry gratefully accepted. That was placed, it was actually placed on the Forrest Fenn Treasures Galore Facebook page and sat there for months, from January to June. Then about that time, Janet, for whatever reason, decided to take it down. It
was depressing her.
It was, I don't know. It is a depressing picture. So she decided to take it down, and it sat there, it sat out of sight. Nobody actually caring about it. There was no conversation about it, no discussion. So when you put something on Facebook, what you're hoping is that, it generates and stimulates conversation, and it just didn't. And so she took it down and replaced it, I'm sure, with something else. So it was sitting there, and then, of course, Janet, or one of her members, I don't remember her saying which, saw the painting, saw our show, and realized that they had this, so that's when Janet contacted me. And before I show you this, I haven't so here's another little research trinket for you. Janet mentioned that in the postmarks in The Thrill of the Chase, of all the postmarks in The Thrill of the Chase, there are 4 that are not within the 1900s, the 20th century. There is one that is in the 21st century. 21st century, it is 2005. And there are 4 that are in the 19th century. And they are all 4 1893. And the connection she was making was that in 1893, it was the year of the Chicago World's Fair. And, of course, they had art in the fair that they were displaying. And Gaul had presented them with several paintings, several very large paintings that they displayed, and he ended up winning 2 bronze medals, not stars, medals in the competition associated with the Chicago Art Fair in 1893. And she spent a little time trying to connect postmarks, as we all do with the postmarks to the 1893 and seeing if there was anything there. So here is what the photocopy of, and keep in mind, this is a photocopy of a catalog page from a Sotheby's catalog at which this painting was auctioned off for what they told Janet was $1,800. You see the lot number directly below the painting because that's how you bid on something at an art auction. It indicates the painter, Gilbert Gaul. They do not use his first name, William, the American painter from 1855 to 1919, the years that he was alive. They call it The Dead Dog, and it is signed, and it's in something called en grisaille. And en grisaille is a French term that's used to describe a painting that was done in shades of gray. And gris, as a matter of fact, gris is the French word for gray. So en grisaille indicates that this painting was done in shades of gray. Now, when you paint in shades of gray, you don't actually paint white. You use a board, in this case it was a board, and you gesso that board with a white coating. And if you look at this painting, what looks like white paint is not actually white paint. It's negative space. It's just paint on which the grease, the gray, hasn't been painted upon. So it's the combination of the white background and various shades of gray that gives you the tones. So I have it in another form on Picasa, and I did that so we could blow it up. But I don't mean blow it up, so that we could look at it more carefully. So I need to transition now that I've made that. Let me do the transition. So let me go over. That's how it looks on my Picasa. And I'm going to have to go back there, so I'll leave you guys for just a second, right? So that's how it looks on Picasa. I've actually enhanced it by increasing the contrast. And there are some differences. Let me just make it a little bit larger. It's going to go get grainy real fast because it wasn't a very high resolution copy. But there are some differences between the painting and how Fenn describes the painting. And I don't mean to imply that Fenn was lying to us. You have to remember that when he did that interview in 2006, that painting could have appeared anytime between 1972 and 1988. So at a minimum, there was 18 years difference between that and his memory. But if it happened in 17, it could be in 1972, it could be as many as 34 years or 35 years worth of difference. So he had probably seen it, despised it, and didn't pick up, didn't remember it. The gentleman, he remembers a smoking gun in the gentleman's hand. We've blown this up and used every kind of, let me give you an example, used various kinds of information like heat maps and things like that. And you can see right there, that is not a gun. That is simply his hand, his elongated hand, because in his case, I've got to go back here. Ooh. Oh, did I?
Double down on it.
What I did is I accepted it. Hold on. Let me get a Control Z here. Oh, that's going to be silly. Hold on. I got to get back to the original image. Hang on. That's right there. No, it's not right there. Why?
The VCR on pause.
Okay. Well, let me do this. All right. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to this image, and I'm going to increase the contrast. Right. Just a little bit. So as you can see, that's his empty hand. He's holding it kind of like that so that it almost looks like a gun, but there is no gun in his hand. The other thing, of course, that's obvious is his hand pointing up. And to me, the implication from an artistic perspective and the metaphors that are in this image would indicate that he's reaching for, getting some sort of approval from God to be able to make some sort of decision about the killing of this dog. The only gun in the image is the one being held by this gentleman back here, and it's not a pistol, of course, it's a rifle. The dog is not actually on the bridge is back here. The dog is laying there, and it's hard to tell if he's laying in a pool of blood. This right here could be interpreted as pool, but again, we're talking about...
Or a shadow.
Or a shadow, right, negative space. The thing that interested me the most, so it is a Western picture, but if you look at this adobe house in the background, it's very Southwestern. And of course, in more support of that, if you look at the various characters in this image, there are some very significant differences that have to be accommodated in the way you see this image. So, for example, we have two white males, this one here and this one here, in white shirts and white hats. The implication being that these are the good guys. Next to the dog on the ground and his hand, you can see his hand right here, closest to the dog, implying that he's the dog's owner, is a man whose skin is dark and who's wearing the dress of a Mexican peasant, and maybe even a southwestern peasant, with the what they call the small sombrero. It isn't a big sombrero, it's a small one, and you can see all the men, while the white males have mustaches of that style in the West, the darker men, the Hispanic, the Mexican men, have beards for the most part, and the darker complexions, and of course they're dressed more darkly, except this one who has his face turned away from the camera. So they're more dressed more darkly. And then over here, there's this interesting person over here, and one has to figure out where she fits into the grand scheme of things, because she's dark complected, but she's wearing an outfit that indicates that she's well placed, right? That she's well heeled. That's not the dress of a Mexican peasant woman. So the question that has to be asked at that point is, what's the relationship between this woman? It is unlikely she has any relationship with any of these men, because these men are peasant men, and she is definitely not a peasant woman. In addition to that, you'll see a woman next to her in what I know to be Native American dress, and at that point in time, Native Americans were the equivalent, and I feel bad about using this, but it was a fact, it's historically true, is Native Americans were treated as slaves to the well-heeled Spanish. And that's what this position is. So the question is this woman married to this man or someone over here, or this man? who actually shot the dog and why. So there's all these interesting stories that have to be analyzed, and I'm not going to bore you to death with them. But and what I'll do is I'll post this particular image onto our blog, and I'll put a link in the description box below so that you can play with it. But there's an amazing amount of story in this one image and can play out a variety of different ways. Who shot the dog? The guy with the rifle, or perhaps the dog belongs to the white man standing over it, and it was one of the Mexican peasants that shot the dog.
Are you sure it's been shot, or it could just be dead?
As opposed to, you mean like it died from a heart attack?
Which is old and dehydrated.
That it could very well be that, but there is too much interaction here. Something happened, right? Something happened besides my dog killed over. Something negative happened there. And again, the interesting...
This guy's got a knife, doesn't he?
It's hard to tell. I can't... that's one of those things. So Shelley is pointing to this gentleman here who looks like he may have a knife, but I'm not sure that just isn't part of the roadway below that. And this gentleman over here looks like he's got making a fist around something as well.
Yeah.
So, but again, without more detail, and we don't have that detail, I suppose I could... Let me see if I can get the image much...
So that looks like a knife because the way his hand is held.
So I can't get that out of the way enough to do that. Because if I close this, it goes back to normal. See?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay.
So, anyway, we thought it was interesting. We're very grateful to both Janet and Terry for sharing this with us. It, as usual, creates some questions, because the description is not quite the description that Fenn gave, but that could be attributed to the fact that there was a great deal of time and pretty much is how he felt about that particular painting. But it has some interesting stories in it. It would be interesting to go back and see if you could research whether or not Gilbert Gaul had maintained some journals and determine from those journals whether or not this had a special meaning to him or the circumstances at which it just arrived. And the other thing is, as I said earlier, you're seeing it painted en griselle, and that's just effectively black paint that has been used to establish the black components, and the white come from the gesso on the board. So he didn't actually, he's painting negative space is what it boils down to. So a lot of interesting things. And the reason that you do that is you sketch it that way, and then you paint over it, and then you make a decision about whether to, at some point, you make a decision about whether to color it or not. He chose not to do this. He made it. And you know as well as I do that in today's world, color is used to represent a lot of things, but if you want to represent something serious, you take a black and white photograph, right? That's what journalists used to do, is shoot that black and white photograph because it reduced the image down to what they called the essentials without the distraction of color. Now, we've come a long way since that time, but it was interesting because he was reducing it to the essentials. The two men, the rifle, the women in the background, one Hispanic or one Mexican and one Native American, and then the four Mexican men in the foreground. And the dog actually, and this is probably going to sound cruel, and if you love your dog, please don't get mad at me, but at this point, there is so much happening in the painting that isn't about the dog. You got to wonder, you could spend days analyzing everything but the dead dog. So, but I don't want to pick on dead dogs.
Well, it's just the name of the painting, so
Yeah.
it's kind of obvious that that's what it must be about.
Yeah. So we thought it was interesting, we thought it was a lot of fun, and we thought while we were on vacation, you guys could play with us and think about it yourselves. Let me see, do I have an outro slide? No, that's number 5. Okay. So we can go from there to there to there. Oops.
The outro. Where'd it go?
It's outro. I got
Okay.
outro. I don't know what. I had her text in.
All right, anyway. That was something.
That was something. So here's what you get when we're not in town. We get to do our shows with a lot of Fenny things and technology. And when we're on vacation, you get Gilbert Gaul. Sorry. I just,
Had to come sometime.
yeah, sooner or later we had to have this conversation. So I think it requires more analysis. When I get back, I've got a 3-hour show planned on a detailed analysis of that dead
3
dog.
hours.
No, I'm just teasing.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay, that was enough about a dead dog.
Yeah.
We will never talk about it again. We'll never speak of this.
Oh, and I will, let me say this about that then. I will take that image and I'll put it up onto our blog and I'll post the link to that image on our blog, and you can do with it what you want. And if you ever communicate with either Janet or Terry on the Forrest Fenn's Treasures Galore on Facebook, make sure you say thank you and for
Or
sharing.
say, never give Toby anything again. Forced us to watch this really
He
boring
missed it.
show about this dead dog.
He promised us 30
Painting
minutes of
and-
something that wouldn't help us get closer to the treasure. And
Never again.
dang nabbit, he did it. Dang nabbit. Okay, say your goodbyes.
All right. Thanks for being here. And again, make sure you give this a thumbs up. Woohoo!
Come on. How
Because you
could
love
we-
us.
You didn't know anything
Because you
about
love us.
the dog.
And why not? Just be nice. Thanks for being here. And we will be back next week live with a whole brand new topic that should be really exciting because we owe it to you.
And who knows, we might even have some stuff from that dang treasure chest with us.
Yeah. So for A Gypsy's Kiss, the vlog, I'm Shelley Carney.
And I'm Toby Eunice. Thanks for, no, seriously, thanks for watching.